Hello and welcome to this ET Now special. I'm Nayantara Rai. Sequoia Capital was absolutely right when it called coronavirus the black swan of 2020. You couldn't be prepared for it, and whatever you do, you'll still be underprepared for it. Having said that, it's also time now, and like we have been doing, to acknowledge and applaud the efforts of all of those who are rising to the occasion. A lot of companies have had to take very difficult steps. Many more still have to rise to the occasion. Here's one that has done so. It's Uber. Joining me today is Pavan Vaish. He is the head of central operations for Uber in India as well as South Asia. Pavan, welcome to ET Now. Thank you so much for this interview. You know, it's been a very tough time for folks like you. You're in charge of your family on one side, but you've also got another large family, which is, you know, your employees at Uber. It's your driver partners. How have you battled the last couple of days? How did you make sure that everyone is safe? And after that, of course, I'm going to talk to you about the suspension by the government of India for suspending the Uber rides and the Uber operations. But having said that, first take us through what the last couple of days have been like. I'm hoping this will motivate a lot of the viewers who are tuning in to figure out what they need to do, how they need to rise to the occasion.
No, thanks, Nayantara. I'm delighted to be here. And if I look at our constituents, there are three of them. So we think of them as our employees who are working hard to provide the service. Then we have our driver partners and our riders who are the next constituency. And then, of course, the country or geography in which we operate. So, you know, first coming to our employees, their safety is something which is very, very important for us. And what we did very early on is on 6th of March itself, we decided that we will issue a global work from home advisory for all our employees in those roles where it can land up being possible. So as you will well appreciate, Uber is a very interesting business where the digital world meets the physical world. So there are a large number of roles which can be done remotely because all you need is internet access, and then you can, access our systems and we can work remotely. But there are many roles where either because of the nature of the role or because it requires some degree of interaction with the physical world, you cannot do it any other way, and you have to come to office. So by moving a large number of our employees to a work from home environment, we were able to empty out our offices and then sparsely populate the remaining employees across that space. So there was very high quality social distancing. And of course, we provide, intensive sanitization, hand sanitizers, masks, all the rest of it, whatever they need in order to ensure that their safety is paramount for us. Apart from that, we are educating our employees on things that they need to do so that their well-being is looked after. So this is on the employee side of it. The second one, which is a very, very important constituency for us, is our driver partners. And we do not take it for granted that they know what needs to be done in order to maintain their own safety and the well-being of their own families. So again, there is a significant education initiative which we have undertaken in order to tell them what are the right things to do. We also provide very interesting services like the access to a doctor consultation on a phone that they can reach out to for them as well as 5 members of their family. Now, obviously, these are difficult times, and by the very nature of the virus, some of our driver partners will get the virus. So what we have also done is that we have a program where up to 2 weeks of their earnings, we are able to assist them with if they are diagnosed either having the coronavirus or if a public health official says that they need to be quarantined as a matter of safety. So it provides them an additional cover. And Uber was the first company, it led the industry in putting something like this out. So very, very pleased with what we have. For in-car safety, what we do, apart from providing hand sanitizers, we are also, getting some sprays over to them. Supplies are obviously a little challenged. And also with all the curtailment of movement of goods, getting them to the appropriate places is slower than we would like it to be. but that effort continues because obviously scale is significant. So that is the second constituency. So we talked of our employees, we talked of our riders and drivers. And the third constituency is we are a very strong partner to the governments in the cities, in the states, in the countries in which we operate. And very early on, Uber took the mandate of assisting the governments in flattening the curve. This is something that you hear very often now. But what we did was we started in-app telling riders, please only take the ride if it is essential. It is the broader interest of community that Uber has put forth in times of crisis like this. So these are some of the things that we have done. Obviously, in certain states, there are advisories that transportation should stop. We are abiding by whatever advisory is there. In many instances, the governments have reached out.
No, Pavan, obviously you will have to, abide by the advisories by state. I think we're pretty much headed towards a countrywide lockdown as well. But when we do that, and one question I want to ask you this is, right now you're also seeing a lot of angst, a lot of sympathy. It's also a time where we need to collectively rise as a society, right? A lot of your driver partners, for no fault of their own, their household income is going to be hit. They're not going to be making much money. I want to ask you, what is it that Uber in India is doing for all of them? And once again, the idea is also for all of us to brainstorm together collectively as Indians, as domestic companies, as MNCs, to rise to the occasion. So, I want to know what is it that Uber is doing for its staff, particularly its drivers who rely on Uber for income.
So, Nayantara, this is an unprecedented crisis, which is pan-industry at a global scale. But we very deeply care for our driver partner community. So very early on, what we did was we looked at what are the elements of cost which are the most burdensome to them during this period. And for most of them, they have a vehicle, which is a car, for which they would have taken a loan. And that EMI payment, the monthly payment, is obviously one which weighs them down. So we are working with the government authorities as well as the top financiers in the country to assist in either EMI deferment, restructuring of these loans, so that our driver partners can get relief during this period till the recovery happens and the volumes and ride volumes are back to a healthy level.
That's of course very, very important because, one of the biggest fears that we're going to have when it comes to coronavirus, the numbers are of course so shocking. And while we're fighting it on the health front, the economy might turn out to be the biggest fatality of coronavirus going forward. We also need to find a vaccine on that front. So, it's very heartening to hear that you're working with the government authorities and to also make sure that, somehow the banks also don't suffer, because then that's going to have a cascading impact once the defaults on the EMI start. So, but that's going to put a lot of pressure on Uber. And it's also, to be fair, not Uber's responsibility to make sure that banks are serviced, that bank loans are serviced. Or is it just too early to be talking about all of this?
So one is the loans are actually taken by our driver partners because these are their vehicles and they're entrepreneurs on the.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is it too early to talk about it? It's not Uber's responsibility, and I understand that, to make sure they don't service their loans. But just multiply that many times over. You take an Uber, you take an Ola, you take many other businesses, and this is perhaps going to be one of the biggest problems and fatality of coronavirus.
No, so I think Uber's role, and we have taken the lead here, is to bring government stakeholders and financial stakeholders together because we are all trying to solve the same problem, right? It is in no one's interest that these loans land up being NPAs, because we believe that once this period is over, right, there will be a recovery, and these very hardworking individuals will be able to make good living on platforms like Uber. So we have to just tide through these difficult periods, right? And obviously we need the assistance of the financiers and the government. The scale of this is fairly significant.
Pavan, while we all must be empathetic, we need to run businesses with compassion. I hate to be so crude, it's still not charity work, right? These are all still businesses. It's just that now we need to be more than ever compassionate and show empathy for all of our employees. Can you give me a sense of how corporations are reacting to various directives that are also coming out from state governments, that you cannot cut down on labor force or you cannot cut down on wages? Is it reasonable? Is it sustainable?
So Uber was on a path to profitability, and which has been very clearly articulated by our CEO Dara. And I think there is that intense focus on ensuring that any spend which is not essential, we are able to defer that, because companies which will survive through this and will then thrive once there is a recovery are those which are able to conserve cash. And I think that is something which is very important. That is a part of our operating system and DNA, and that has only sharpened all the more through this crisis. And I think what makes it extra special for us is there is such a deep sense of purpose, because if we can help in flattening the curve, we can play a role in saving lives. If we can help our driver partners ride through the next couple of months, then in the recovery, we can be with them as their financial health recovers and lands up being in a good place. So that gives us a deep sense of purpose and makes us continue to work 12, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day in order to make this a reality.
Okay, that's very encouraging to hear. And Pavan, one of the reasons I wanted to get you on ET Now, on this very show, and I said that, is also to inspire others, to motivate others. And one of the best ways to perhaps also do that is, if you're willing to share some anecdotes on some of the challenges you've had to overcome in the last couple of days and how you've done it.
So I think, when we see driver partners go through a difficult time, their earnings, get reduced because the volume of rides which are being requested is lower. In some cities, there are shutdowns, as you've mentioned. We are an emotional company. We deeply connect with our driver partners, and I think that is hard. And at one level in a crisis, you do need to step back and get your training to kind of play on and do the right things which are needed in order to survive through this crisis and assist your driver partners in scalable ways so that you can make things happen for them and recover, because their families are dependent on their livelihood. So as much as it inspires me and inspires my teams every day, it can be emotionally hard, but we also see the successes we are having, and that inspires us. But yeah, we take it day to day, and that's how we are going. I would like to add that we are also inspired by the public health officials who reach out to us, because they've got a really tough job. They are tracking cases, they are trying to ensure that, additional people do not get affected. And my directive to my teams is, let us ensure that they're getting all the information they need. We are providing the best quality of service and support to them during these very difficult times. So we want to be the number one partner to governments and officials as they battle this on the front line.
So happy to hear you say that, because, on the one end, I'm sure you would have also, and it's just an educated guess, that you would have been flooded with several requests from various health departments, because, a lot of your Uber drivers would have been at airports. They would have, given rides to foreign nationals, including Chinese, including Spanish and Italian tourists, and all of that. And how has that been? Is that correct, first of all? And how have you had to deal with that? Because you would have also had to explain to the drivers how they need to cooperate.
So, so far, the number of queries, has, been relatively small, but we are prepared for this to ramp up. So we have a law enforcement response team, which is there, supported by an incident response team. And they work 24/7. We have reached out to public health officials, to law enforcement, to tell them, here is the process by which you can connect with us, make an information request, and we will be able to assist you. And so far that has gone very smoothly. But, as you said, this is a very important role, because when we provide a quick response, we are proactive, we can assist in the government and PHOs providing a quick reaction and therefore, stopping the spread or the pace of spread of this virus.
Pavan, what about life post-coronavirus? I think, we talk about Swachh Bharat, we talk about how bad India's hygiene is, but, if there's one learning as well, it's a hygiene problem that exists globally. What are some of the biggest learnings for Uber as a corporation? How are you going to change and ensure that your partners always have hygienic cars going forward? Because I think the world needs to adapt to this new reality now.
So I think, as I mentioned, the education that we are doing with driver partners of how to look after not just their own hygiene, but how they can look after their cars and ensure that they're clean, I think helps. We also talked about the fact that, we are able to get limited amount of sprays, sanitizers into their hands, and that effort continues. So that also, I think, will be a step in the right direction. Having said that, I think, some of the learnings from China are that after a period of time, riders themselves actually started carrying some of their own supplies because, the scale of this is just so enormous. I think it is a collective partnership where we join hands and make things happen.
Pavan, I'm going to make this one of my final questions to you. For all those that are tuning in, how has work for home been for Uber?
So, one is that the number of hours that we put has dramatically gone up, right? And that is not something I expected. Frankly, I expected that given you're working from home, it'll be more efficient, travel time will be saved, and it's a more balanced situation. But my teams across the board are saying they're working a lot longer. So hopefully, that'll get into a regular rhythm, going forward. We are also a company that is used to working in a digital sense. So we use Zoom, we use Slack, we use, Google Sheets and Drives and things like that. So we have all the tools. But we also do enjoy walking around the office, meeting people in the corridor, making some quick decisions. And that is something, the water cooler has kind of disappeared. So I have made an effort to actually create my own virtual water cooler. And, a couple of times a week in the evening with my teams, it's a coffee with Pavan, except it's a virtual coffee and they all join, whoever is able to make it. Sometimes my wife, Ila, joins me, and we like to make it a little more informal because, we are a community, we are a family. And if a dog barks while you're on a video conference or your, baby shows up with you, that is perfectly acceptable and in fact, welcomed.
But do you think this is the biggest reset that we could see for office life and for corporates around the world? Because, if productivity hasn't taken that big a hit, why will corporations continue to spend money on those overheads, fancy real estate, electricity, water? Do you think this could be the biggest reset for corporates around the world?
I think there will be some degree of reset, but I also am a strong believer that human contact, cannot be sent through a Zoom. You cannot send a handshake through a Zoom. So I think you will need a bit of both. But I think there will be certainly some rethinking about, does every role need to be in a physical office, or some of this can be done virtually, and you can provide much better options to people who today may have to travel 1.5, 2 hours each way to office, right? So I think that's the direction in which this will probably head.
Pavan Vaish, I will make this my final question to you, and it's going to be a little cheeky one, so I hope you'll allow me. At a time like this, a lot of employees of every corporation across sectors, across the world, are very scared. They don't know what is in store for them next week, next month, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. We've never had an event like this. It's the biggest upheaval for our generation, at least. Is that something which is discussed at all at boardrooms right now? Layoffs, future layoffs, that, right now you just tie you go with the tide, take it later, postpone the tough decisions. There are, of course, some others who are reacting in different ways, trying to soothe frayed nerves. For example, Mark Zuckerberg has announced that fixed bonus for everybody. Can you give us an insight?
So I think experience counts for a lot. There obviously is nervousness. A large number of our workforce is relatively young, so they have not gone through a crisis like a 9/11 or the Lehman crisis in 2008, 2009. I was, listening to Dara, who's our CEO, and he was at Expedia when 9/11 happened. So talk about going through a, life-changing experience. And I think we are blessed within Uber to have senior leaders, whether it is Dara, whether it is the leadership in India, which has seen a number of these crises in their work life and seen how to handle it, how to react and react fast, and then build a recovery path for the long term. And I think our teams are looking at the leadership and getting inspired and saying that, yes, these people are stable hands and they can assist us. There is direction there. So I think that is very helpful. And for us, it is inspiring because there is so much energy and passion. We are able to channelize it in select focus areas where you can truly make a difference. So in times of crisis like this, our mantra is do fewer things, but do things that really make an impact. And our teams must have a deep sense of purpose. And frankly, what better company than Uber to have a deep sense of purpose? In effect, our riders and driver partners globally. It's amazing, right?
Since you brought up Dara, he did say, I think a few days back, that Uber's business is not going to die because of coronavirus. He talked about the $10 billion of unrestricted cash, how if there is demand, there will be supply, and one day there will be that demand that's going to be created. Pavan, has he done a town hall with all of you? Has he reached out to the workforce?
So Dara regularly reaches out to the workforce. That is something which is, I think, very special. He's someone who connects very deeply with every employee. And I think that is a gift that he has. So everyone is very aligned. And there are communications from Dara, from the entire leadership team very frequently, because in times like this, we over-communicate. The strategy is over-communicated. And so I think everyone has a very, very good bearing of where the company is heading and why we are uniquely positioned through our variable cost structure, through enough cash, and the fact that we are very focused on our cash burn, that we will come out strong and stronger through this crisis. As they say, a good crisis is too valuable to waste. We absolutely agree with that mantra.
And with that, Pavan, I'd like to thank you on the rather optimistic note. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out from your busy schedule. I'm sure you've been very, very busy on Zoom. We are, of course, connected on a Zoom call as well for this broadcast. Thanks so much for taking the time out and joining us here on ET Now.
No, thank you, Nayantara. Delighted to be on ET Now.
Thank you.